I'm Jim Hanks, and you are watching Lovett Film.
Thank you, Jim Hanks. It's so weird that Jim Hanks just introduced the show in a great way. We just interviewed him there a few minutes ago, and what an amazing guest. Welcome back to Lovett Film, by the way. I'm your host, Jamie, here with Chris, and we are very excited about today's episode. We're here with the guy who voiced this guy. That's right, Woody. Now, you're probably thinking, Tom Hanks voices Woody. He does. But Jim Hanks actually has more credits as the character, believe it or not, because since all of the movies have been made, and since the first one was made, Jim has done all of the secondary media for Toy Story, like all of the shorts, the video games, the everything in between, the rides in Disneyland. So it's really fascinating to talk to him about that part of his career. But that, of course, that's not the only thing Jim has done. He's been in movies like Buford's Beach Parties. He's been in countless TV shows. Forrest Gump, we talked about a lot there too, which, you know, he gave us amazing stories about the Vietnam sequences in the movie. So amazing.
Having to, pretty much explaining that every time we see Forrest in the movie running, when you don't see Tom's face, that's him. That's him with the wig on and the cap. Really cool. I think the first thing I remember Jim from was the Buzz Lightyear Star Command.
Yeah.
So he, obviously Woody's not in the movie that much, but he's in the start because they're like loading up the DVD.
That's true, yeah.
And I remember that was one of the first times I heard, and obviously, the doll. We've had multiple dolls and, in our home growing up. Huge Toy Story fans. So yeah, no.
We got to get into it. We got to get
into it.
To Jim Hanks.
You're my favorite deputy.
It's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Jamie. Thanks for your time today.
Nice to meet you, Jamie. Good thing I thought of putting a blue curtain behind myself also. Good thing I didn't, because it would just be this blue wall. It would look like we were sitting next to each other or something.
Yeah, it'd be very strange if it would look like we're in the same room, but we're both looking this way for some reason. Very inconspicuous. Well, as I said, it's a pleasure to meet you and taking your time today. My name is Jamie. We're Lovett Film. We're a film podcast page, and we're all about just getting into talking to guys like you and anyone in the business about how these things are made. Because me, myself, I'm not an actor or filmmaker, but I'm obsessed with the whole thing and everything you do, and the lighting and the filmmaking and the acting and the performance is just fascinating to us. And I mean, it's I'm looking forward to talking to you. First of all, though, I just want to say your setup is amazing. I mean, your framing and the lighting, it just looks great. You can imagine doing Zoom interviews. Sometimes it's like filmed on a potato in like a closet or something.
I did one not too long ago where I didn't do any lighting, and I thought I looked okay. And then when I saw the final product, I went, I got to throw up a couple of lights. So, and I have lights for self-tapes and stuff like that. So, thanks. I do have a little bit of a shine here, but with a chrome dome, you can't really get away with that. So.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, it's mad these days too, that like lights are so available. Like when we were getting our lights, it was only like a little while ago and they were so expensive. But now, like, I mean, if you go onto Amazon or something, anybody can get them for like $20 or whatever, you know?
Yeah. When I had a tiny, what I call a micro production company at one time. And I wanted to get lights, and at one point I just made my own, out of whatever, and just dealt with the shitty light quality. But I remember like adjustable, dimmable LED lights were like $1,200 a pop, and for little ones, just little rectangular ones. And now you can pick them up, $70 or something like that, and they're good. And I've been on movies where the DP, I remember working on this one movie where it was this really experienced Italian DP, and he had a little, cheapy thing that he just moved around for like little spotlights for, just to brighten something up in the dark and, like outside. And I went, wow, okay, that's cool. And then I went online and found them, and they were like $70. And he says, I love this light. Long before I was in this, I remember being, I was growing up during the 70s, and when Star Wars came out in 77, and I was like a sophomore in high school, and that just rocked my world. It was like, wow, this. And then I couldn't I wanted to know everything about how you made it, and and any kind of making of stuff. I was like, how's that? What do they do? What do they do? And I was always fascinated by it long before I had a brother who got into the industry, and I was just and played around with Super 8 film cameras and did stop action and stuff like that. So I was definitely into it.
That's such a formative movie to first see too. Like, I mean, this is a great opportunity. I haven't spoke to anyone who saw the original Star Wars in theaters. I don't know. Have you seen it recently compared to what you saw as a kid? I mean, has that changed dramatically just in how you saw it back then? Because I imagine in the theater, like, it was all on film. It was just being projected.
It gives me goosebumps actually when I think about it. I had, Star Wars came back in the day where you didn't have this engine that's telling you everything that was coming out, even years before. And I lived in a little town in Northern California, which had a movie theater, but Star Wars wasn't playing there. And my best friend in high school said, "Hey, there's this cool movie, but we got to drive down to this other town, which is like 40 miles away." And I went, "All right, well, I'll go with you." And I had absolutely no idea what this movie was. And we go into this crowded little theater in this college town, like 40 miles away, and the movie starts out. And and it's that little ship, and all the flashing lights going past it, and then the big Star Destroyer comes in and just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And I just remember going, "Holy shit!" And there's never been, and I can't imagine there ever will be, another quantum shift in the film watching experience like that was, because that thing just got bigger and bigger, and the sound and the music, and oh my God. And and I went and saw that movie. Like, we would that friend and a couple of other friends, we would go down while that first Star Wars movie was like big for like a year. I mean, it was in theaters solid for a year. And we would go down, and I had a friend who had his family had moved down to the Bay Area, the San Francisco Bay Area. And so we would go down to that guy's parents' place and ride the BART system, the trains into San Francisco, and go see Star Wars. I think I saw it 3 times at the Coronet Theater in San Francisco on 70 millimeter. And a couple of times when we saw it, they were the only seats available were front row all the way to one side, left or right. So you're watching the movie like this. and I was 16, and we were going into San Francisco, just a group like 4 guys, 16-year-olds, and then the movie would come out, would be over, and we would make our way back to the BART station at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning. And back then San Francisco was just quiet. There was just nobody around. It's just a different life, because I would never let my 16-year-old do that now. Going, "Are you crazy? You get killed." But we would leave the movie and basically run the whole way to the BART station, imitating Han Solo running down the hallway with his blaster, going. And we were just complete nerds. But yeah, I mean, I kind of feel bad for generations now, because you'll never ever have that kind of experience, because that movie blew everything out of the water. There had never been anything visually like it. And that's why it was so huge. I mean, I did watch it. I don't know. I did watch the episode 4 a couple of years ago, and it's, by today's standards, it's super slow. It's just so slow. But great character building and everything else. But by today's standards, everything just kind of clips along. And but it's it's such an iconic movie. I mean, I wouldn't say it's the best movie ever made, but as far as changing the experience for the audience, it set a bar so high that no one's ever going to be able to. I think there's movies that are equivalent, but because it's not the first, you'll never have that reaction.
I absolutely agree. I mean, even for my generation, I mean, I'm turning 27 this year, and one of those formative movies of, oh my God, it's the best thing ever, is the same movie you're talking about. It just shows the longevity of just how imaginative that movie was. I mean, just talking about you specifically too, Jim. Like, after that, say making Super 8 movies and stuff like that, when did you think to yourself, "Oh, I'm gonna pursue this and make it what I want to do"?
I didn't really have any idea, any intention of getting into the industry until I moved down here in June of '88 with my soon-to-be ex-wife, unfortunately. And she had been acting. She'd been doing stage and stuff like that. And we lived in Sacramento at the time. And she wanted to really try to go somewhere to, really make a go out of it where she could make a living. And we ended up deciding, we thought about a lot of different places, New York, Chicago, even Seattle, and a couple of other places. And we just said, and she just decided, let's do LA. And when we both had family down here, so that kind of helped with the decision. And I hadn't, we landed and I got kind of sucked into the industry really quickly once we got here. My wife had started a job where she was a receptionist at an agency. And the owner of the agency found out who I was related to, and then kind of tried to cash in on that. And it was kind of a double-edged sword. One was that he put me in front of people I should have never been in front of because I was so inexperienced. I was so stupidly green. And over the years, found out that I made every stupid mistake that a green actor can make. And casting directors have the memories of elephants. They just don't forget. So, even after years of, going, the one thing, the positive thing that agent did is he got in front of a really good teacher. And I did some coaching with him. And then I audited a bunch of other classes, and I decided to go back to that particular teacher. His name was Brian Reese. And I was with him off and on for 30 years until he finally retired when the pandemic hit. And that's where I kind of, learned everything that I could learn in class, in that class anyway. I think I personally think you're always learning. I don't think there's any time as an actor you go, that's it. I'm done learning. Just get me work. And it's not only just learning; it's also working out and keeping in shape, like anything. Like Brian often likes to use sports analogies. You can't learn to play tennis and then expect to just pick it up, and be good at it any time. And play Wimbledon or anything like that. It's you're constantly learning and stretching your legs. So two sides of the sword. One, I shouldn't have been in front of people, and two, I met a great teacher. I shouldn't have been in front of anybody. Certainly network casting directors for at least 5 or 10 years to really know what I should have been doing was doing small things, which I ultimately did. I ended up doing a lot of small stuff, which that's where you learn. There's not as much pressure, and you just you learn the technique that there's the craft of it, which is acting, and then there's the technique of it, which is how do you work with a camera? How do you know when you're doing a scene, you have to emotionally be attached to what you're doing, but you also have to be aware that where the camera is and play with those angles. Open yourself up to the camera a little bit, and because you can't be acting with your back to the camera because nobody sees anything, and so
All important stuff, like, I mean, one thing in terms of filmmaking, which I would love to know about too, is I read online that you were the body double in Forrest Gump, directed by Robert Zemeckis. What was that production like to be a part of? Because I'd imagine in terms of filmmaking, that movie was doing stuff that had never been done before.
Oh, I have said to my brother that I felt really fortunate to be part of something, especially something because that was the first time I'd done anything like that with Tom. And, and certainly after the fact, how, iconic the movie is. It's really, I feel really fortunate to have had any part of it. It was a strange experience. I'd never been involved with anything that was that big. I mean, it was huge. Like the wardrobe department, where when I was working on it, they were working down in South Carolina in a little town called Beaufort. And then that's where they were based, and they were working over on Hilton's Head, where that was the Vietnam stuff. They were getting ready to build a huge part or an extension of a neighborhood, whatever, pretty high end, and so they hadn't started yet. And so they got permission to shoot there, and because they were going to just cut everything down, they could blow shit up and do everything. That's they blowing up trees and doing all the fight sequences in Vietnam and stuff, which was I wasn't a part of, but I got to go watch, and that was really cool. Especially like the firefight with a bunch of Viet Cong and all that kind of stuff. But in Beaufort, it was so big. Their wardrobe department they had it was like an old grocery store, a big U.S. grocery store. I mean, the thing was ginormous, and it was completely gutted, and it was just all rows and rows and rows and rows of wardrobe from front to back, side to side. I mean, there must have been thousands of wardrobes, because they were, kitting out so many different people.
And different decades too. Like, it was historical.
Yeah. And yes. And, but they were doing all the war sequences, so they had all the U.S. GIs and all the Vietnamese soldiers, and everything in between, and then they had built Mama's house there, which was very cool. You walked up to it and you went, this, it was built. It was just kind of a shell. It didn't have any plumbing or anything, but it looked so real. It was very cool. And so I would be there. I was there for about 6 weeks, and I would just I'd be hanging out. And during the week, what they were doing was I would go in and with the wardrobe people, and they were figuring out the wardrobe for his run. So I would work. They would just keep. There was sometimes days, several days where I would just go in and just change clothes for like 6 hours. I would change clothes. They would take 3 Polaroids from front, side, and and so it got really boring. So I took it upon myself to make every Polaroid different. I did something, of different facial expression or some sort of weird thing. Uh, and I did hear one of the wardrobe people said at one point, they hadn't said anything. And Bob Zemeckis said, noticed after several days of my doing it, so he's different in every single picture. I went, great, he noticed. But then on the weekends, they would fly me out with another unit where I would do the running stuff. Like they flew me to Montana and New Hampshire. We did one little part on the Blue Ridge Parkway, which is just in North Carolina. Where else? I can't remember where else we went, but we went. So it was pretty much every weekend we would go somewhere and shoot stuff. And the only time Tom went too was when we were in Vermont, because there was one scene where you could see him, so pretty much all that running stuff is, if you can't see his face, it's me. If you can see his face, it's obviously him. And so every time I watch the movie, I'm going, me, Tom, me, Tom.
And did you have to have the wig on for these scenes when he had the cap on?
Yeah. Yeah. And different lengths depending on, when it was. And
that must have been so fun.
It was very cool. It was weird. I remember being in Glacier National Park, and we were on the road to the sun. And, it's all basically, they blocked off one lane. And the road to the sun is this really cool road that was basically chiseled in the side of the cliff that the glaciers cleared out. And so it's this really tiny little road. And so people are having to stop and, go around us with one lane. And I remember a couple of times people said, "What are you making?" And somebody, "It's Forrest Gump." And they would go, "Never heard of it." Which is kind of weird now, because, I don't know. I wonder if any of those people even remember it, because it's such a weird word that, they wonder if they even remember, what did they say? I don't know. It was I'd never heard of it before, but it was fun. And I got to see some of the coolest country, and which I had never been to before, and do some weird stuff. Like we were in Vermont, and we got there just as it was fall, and the peak had just passed. So we were just barely catching it, but it was still, gorgeous. And I'm running along this road, and the camera is on the other side of this field, and there are these cows. And but the cows kept looking at the camera. And so I was running, and they said, "Well, the cows keep looking at the camera. So when you're running, can you yell and whoop and whatever to get them to look at you?" So I'm running way on the other side, going, "Hey, cow, and trying not to look like I'm screaming at the top of my voice as I'm doing the Gump trot. So
we're never gonna watch Forrest Gump the same way.
No, I've never been able to watch it. Completely as a regular audience member. Though now that I'm in the business, I don't watch any movie, I think, as a regular audience. I'm always wondering how they did it, or marveling at the acting, or any, stuff like that.
Another part of the business too, Jim, that I find really interesting is the whole the variety of stuff you can do with voice acting, going through say all the stuff you've done. I find so interesting too, even with all the Toy Story stuff. And I know you get asked all the time, and people are trying to get scoops out of you, what do you know about this and that? But I find it interesting that there's just so many projects that Disney are always doing, whether it be video games or, back when the first movie came out in 95, there was all these shorts and stuff after it. When you first got involved with that, did you like with your brother Tom and stuff? Did you like ask how you do this voice, or did you watch the movie, or like how did you get your own what ultimately became your own version of that character? Sorry for the interruption. If you are enjoying this video, why not leave a like, subscribe to the channel, click the bell notifications, rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Follow us on all our socials at Lovett Film. Help us grow so we can keep giving you guys interviews like this or many of the other interviews. We've interviewed people from GTA, Red Dead Redemption 2, Fallout, Dexter, you name it. More coming right here on Lovett Film.
Well, my own version is as close as I can get to Tom. Generally, I'm just trying to be as close to Tom and Tom's performance as I possibly can. And the Woody, you know, I've been doing Woody for so long, I get what he's trying to do. And, mostly it's, you know, I'll get a sample of something. Like the first thing I ever did was, one of the pull string toys where he's from the first movie where he's saying, "You're my favorite deputy, and there's a snake in my boot," and stuff like that. And I listened to Tom doing those. And, you know, they had processed the voice so much that they needed a cleaner. So I come in and do it. And Tom's like, you know, stupidly busy, so he doesn't have a lot of time to do it. And I'm immensely grateful that I get to do it. So generally it's mostly, you know, trying to sound as close to him as possible. There have been a couple of times, like you mentioned, the shorts that we did a bunch of, you know, it was like Saturday morning interstitial things that were really fun. And that was the only time I've ever done it, and that was a long time ago, where we had a whole cast like there and doing it. And that was really, and whenever I get something in the character that's not from the movie, I get to play with it more. And find my own humor in it and my own whatever, you know, of course, staying as true to the character as possible. Probably the one thing that that I had a lot of input into was there's next to Disneyland, there's the California Adventure. And in California Adventure, there's a ride called the Midway Mania, and and I went in, and it was, you know, the Pixar people are there; they're helping develop it because, you know, they're very particular about the characters and everything. So I'm working with a director from Pixar, and the game is pretty, the ride is kind of, you know, they want little kids like 2 and 3 year olds to be able to do it. And so they asked me to you're talking to 2 and 3 year olds. And so they had me kind of talking, like the only example I could think of is like when in the first movie, when Tom kind of draws out the neighbor boys, whose name I'm blanking on.
Sid.
What's that?
So the neighbor is Sid, was it?
Sid, yeah. So Sid had taken all the toys and, you know, made all these weird, creepy hybrids and stuff. And there's one place where Tom goes, come on, yeah, it's okay, kind of thing. And that's kind of where they wanted me to go with it. And it just wasn't working. And I was like, trying to, like Woody's talking to a 3-year-old. And it just wasn't working, or I wasn't finding it. And finally I said, "Hey, can I say something?" And, you know, the director's in the booth with me and the rest of everybody, all the people from, you know, there was probably 8 to 10 people in the control room. And I was saying, you know, the thing about Woody is, you know, Woody never really, one of the great things about Woody is he never talks down to anybody. And I feel like Woody is more like everybody's favorite teacher. and they're all going, oh, I see them talking in the control booth, and they come back and they say, okay, yeah, okay, let's see how that sounds. And this was mind you, this was the third session. The first two sessions I probably did like for 4 to 5 hours, and we couldn't get it. And this third session, after I had made that suggestion, we did it. I did the entire ride in 45 minutes. And they went, that's what we needed. Thanks, Jim. And that was really cool. That was, not to, I don't want to say that they weren't doing it right, but they just hadn't thought of the favorite teacher kind of thing. And they're also really collaborative. And that was really cool to be able to say, to give my input. And then that's what it is. And if you go on the ride or watch videos of it, it's not like I'm talking like I am now. It's not like I'm talking and teaching kids how to play calculus or, to do calculus or something. I'm very, very, enthusiastic and inclusive, and here's how you do it, and then you do this, and blah, 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 like this kind of stuff. And so that was really that to me is the joy, one of the joys of doing it.
It also reaches so many kids too. Like, I mean, what I found so interesting about doing my preparation for this interview, Jim, was like I was going through like things you've been in, and like, oh my God, that's so fascinating, and things like Forrest Gump, like finding out like, oh, I want to ask about this and that. And I was just looking on my desk, and I turned, and it was, I don't mean to embarrass you, but I have on my desk when I'm like doing research and stuff like that, things from childhood, sentimental things. And I do have, now again, sorry to embarrass you here, Jim, my Woody doll from when I was a really young kid. I think I got him when I was about 6 years old. Like everyone has a toy you have for years. And it was fascinating to me that it's like the person I am preparing for, your voice is in this doll. And I did pull the string, and as you can hear, the batteries have never been changed. How does it feel for you now that
they're easy to change?
But is it weird, or is it, what's the word? Does it mean anything to you that so many kids across the world would have had a toy as a child, and with your voice in it, and touched the hearts of so many kids? Because to me, that's just fascinating.
I love it. I think it's really, really cool. I've had so many people over the years say, say basically what you've just said. It's, I did one interview a while back where he had kind of looked at what I had done and what Tom had done, and my voice, there's more of my voice doing Woody than there is Tom doing. That might be, now that they've done 5 movies, that might be, we might be much closer. But I did for the first time a couple of years ago, I did Disney's convention, the DS3, I think it's called. And when the guy, Ben, who's a guy who I work with all the time in sessions, he was introducing me, and he asked me, how many sessions do you think you've done? And I have no clue. And at that point, he said, you've done 329 or something like that. And I went, holy crap, wow, 300, wow.
You think about it, yeah, like all the video games and everything. I mean, they've been making the video games since the late 90s. So, I mean, every video game has been your voice, which is, another thing I wanted to ask. I mean, does it ever get funny for you in a booth when you're doing the video games? Because I'd imagine it's a lot of like, Woody jumps and it's Woody falls.
Oh yeah, all the effort. I was and that was I remember doing the it was one of the first ones. This is a 2D thing, and they said, okay, so Jim, what we need is he's gonna climb up on the bed, and then he's going to swing across this thing, and he's going to land. And then he's going to run, and he's going to jump on a ball, and he's going to balance on the ball as it goes, and all this other, so I'm just going, okay, he jumps, he lands, and just scribbling all this stuff down. And it says, okay, go. And I start doing it, you know, and all this stuff. And it, it just totally made sense to me. I'd never done it before, but it 100% made sense to me. And also, yeah, to me, it only made sense that you put a lot of physicality into it. And I remember doing the first time I did it, and you know, I'm looking at my scribbles, and I get to the end, and I look up, and there's probably, you know, half a dozen people in the control room, and they're all cracking up. And I went, all right, cool. I did something right there. You know, and it's just, I don't know. You know, another thing that's weird that life, when I look back on it, is when I was a kid, my oldest brother, Larry, had a reel-to-reel tape player. I had a few of them. He had a couple, you know, really big ones, and he had these little ones that, you know, actually he had one that looked very much like the one from Mission Impossible that, you know, blew up at this will self-destruct in 30 seconds kind of thing. And we, like, in the summers when they would come and visit, my parents were divorced when I was really young, so they would come up during the summers. And we would come up with ideas and make little radio plays. Or at one point, when I was in high school and making mixtapes, I would make up commercials, and do the whole, you know, and you know, today, blah, 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 you know, in between things, and you know, my mixtapes would be playing at keggers, and all of a sudden there'd be this stupid commercial in the middle of it, you know, between, you know, Springsteen songs or something. And so coming up with the effort sounds was just something I had already done. I had done that kind of stuff when I was a kid, and just, you know, thought about it. And then all of a sudden I'm getting paid to do it. It's great.
It's cool, like even like making your own commercials when you're like back then, and then you end up even, you know, your voice is used so many times. I mean, you were Jeffrey the Giraffe for Toys R Us as well for a long time too. So I mean, I'd say did that help when it came to that job?
Well, that job was, I was making commercials, but I was a character within the commercial, which was so fun because every commercial I did, I was just the character. I was never the one selling the product, which was so cool because I would just come in and be this, this really enthusiastic. When I did the audition for that, they said, we're not looking for cartoony voices. We're just looking for a grown-up who's basically a kid who really, really loves toys. And I went, great, no problem there, because I do. And so I just went in and just did that, and and got the job. And that would, to this day, still my favorite job, because I got to do, they really liked when I improv stuff, to the point where I remember going in for a radio spot, and in the script, every line, not just sentence, but every line had a number. So, and I remember on this one thing, line 17 was just hyphens. And I was going through, there was like 5 different spots, and I was just kind of thumbing through, and I said, oh, and I was on a phone patch to people back in Chicago. And I said, so on such and such spot, on line 17, do you want me to come up with something? And there's this pause, and finally this click, and they go, yeah, we were hoping maybe you could come up with something funny. We know this, we just can't think of something. And I went, sure, great, fine, great, I love it. That to me was so fun. And I remember one time we were, I don't know, I'd probably been doing it for 6-8 months. And what I would always do every session is, and every spot, I would do it exactly as written for like 3 takes. and then I would start throwing stuff in. And I remember one time, after that third take, I threw something in, and they went, "Great, Jim. We were really, we were waiting for you to start ad-libbing." And I said, "So, okay, let me stop you here. Do you want me to ad lib? Do you want me to add stuff to this?" And they went, "Absolutely." And so from that point on, I stopped doing it as written 3 times. I just, if it was really good to start with, I would do 1 or 2 takes, but I would just start throwing whatever I thought was appropriate. And that to me was, that's where it's fun. I mean, I love talking into a microphone and doing what I'm asked. It's written really specifically. We have to have it like this. But when I get to collaborate and add my sense of humor to it, that's what's really fun. That's the best.
It's so freeing too. Is there a line you can think of from any of the projects you did that maybe was so difficult to do that it stays with you, if at all?
Difficult. Well, I think difficult. Wow. I probably I probably black those out. I remember early on when doing commercials, way back in the day, I don't think anybody understood how difficult it was to say cellular service.
All right. Cellular service. That is hard.
And I remember thinking cellular service. I guess I even had to kind of slow down and think about it now. And they went, and I remember I was working for, I can't remember who, some, cell service that's now obviously bought up by somebody. And I said that, and I remember the producer or director on the other end of the phone patch tried saying it, and it's, oh my God, it is hard, because they never said it out loud. They just typed it. I can remember that. I don't remember. I mean, one of the things that's really difficult for me with Woody is when they ask me to sing, and I'm not a singer. And so, I've done singing for the Ice Capades, and I just did a thing for a live show in Disney World as Jesse's Roundup or something like that. And I've done a couple of other ones like that where you have to sing, and I'm just not a singer. And so I've gotten better at it over the years. But those are always the ones I just go, oh, all right. Those are the ones those are the longest sessions, because it just takes me a long time, and they kind of have to cobble something together when I manage to hit something in the right key. And
I think what would be interesting to know too, like I have brothers as well, and we always do voices growing up and stuff like that, and we'd always compare like how you do that, or like when we're playing games with toys as kids, we compare how you do a voice and stuff like that. When you were initially voicing Woody, or even now, do you ever go to Tom and say, how does this sound? Does this sound like you, or do you ever compare rather your versions of the character?
No, not really. Though, I have learned that there's really specific things that I'd have to do physically to get to Tom's voice, because we have similar voices, especially when we start talking loud. That to me, especially early on with Woody, it's not so much the case now as Tom has aged, but early on, it was really easy to do Tom because he yelled a lot, and I used to say that my Woody is my impression of Tom yelling at his kids, which was "get down from there" kind of thing. Yeah, because that's the same as Buzz. It's the same thing. But as he's gotten older and more's going on, and his voice is, he's doing more as the character has grown. It's like sometimes it's really hard to do him when he's quiet, because there's physiological things that he does differently. Um, uh, one is the thing that I've noticed is that for whatever reason, I call myself kind of a lazy talker. And so my voice is really from right here, just the bottom of my throat. And it's just kind of, but Tom does this thing where Tom's always been the loud one. So he speaks from his diaphragm with a lot of power, and he puts stuff up nasally at the same time. So I have to kind of go away from my normal thing to where I'm talking louder, and with power, but putting it higher in my nasal. And that's how I get to Tom for the most part. But now as he's gotten older, he's getting more gravelly. So his voice is coming down a little bit closer to mine. So now I have to do the powered nasal and a little more gravel at the same time. That's just to get to him. There's, if I'm doing something else, it's completely, you talk to anybody who does a lot of voices, and they're finding all the different places where they're getting that tone. And one of the funniest things in the last 5-10 years is one of my favorite directions when I'm doing, especially early stuff that's referencing the early Toy Story stuff, is going, we need to get younger, Tom. Okay. So that's
you have to bring it up to
yeah,
more of
I
a
have to
yell.
bring up the energy, or like the stuff I've been doing for 5 is in some ways easier, but then again, it's I'm chasing different other physiological things that have changed over time. So I got to figure it out. And it's weird because, you're trying to get performance, but then there's the technical aspect of where do I put my voice and so I'm thinking, I'm thinking 3 things. What the words, I'm reading the words, plus where it is in my body the sound has to come from, plus performance. And it gets a little crazy sometimes. And I'm my worst critic. I'll listen to playback and go, no, I can do that better. Give me another one.
I think a lot of people can relate to that. I mean, what I love too about, like, say, the amount of content you can get is all like the shorts, and I know you voiced Woody in Lamp Life, the short after the 4th movie. And again, I'm not looking for a scoop on the 5th one if there's going to be another short, but
I'm not the one to ask because they don't let me know much about anything. I know as much as you do. Is that it's kind of old toys against technology is about all I know.
did you enjoy doing the short film though, Lamp Life, as in doing Woody in a different capacity and more like a scene?
Yeah, I did. Again, that was cool because I got to do Woody without any specific prompts because it was its own freestanding thing. And again, I'm my own worst harsh critic, and I listened to it, go, "Oh, I could have done that, but much better." All right, but I have come to learn, and I keep having to tell myself that no matter what you have done, you will look back on it and go, oh, "I could have done that better." You just kind of have to let it go and do the next thing better.
I think that's, as I said, a lot of people will relate to that. Jim, I can't thank you enough for so much of your time today. What we typically end our interviews with is for the folks watching who want to get into what you do, whether that be say being on these productions like Forrest Gump, or being in movies, or being in TV shows, or getting into the voice acting stuff. I know it's a very broad question, but is there any form of advice you could give to people who want to get into this industry in some way?
Ooh, well, the tried and true one, and I agree with it, is just to do it. Like we were talking earlier about the cost of lights and things like that. When 20 years ago, it was so freaking expensive to do something that looked good, and now you can go out and buy a ton of lights and buy a decent microphone or microphones and you literally could shoot with a good phone. And and the thing is, you know, I've been asked so many times in my time in the last 30 plus years. People come up to me and say, my kid wants to go to film school. They want to get into the industry. And I always say, all right, well, you want to go to film school, and sorry, film schools, but this is how I feel. If you want to go to film school, go for a year, learn the terminology, learn what the departments do, learn the vernacular, learn some stuff, and then take that same money that you would spend on film school and make something, cast it, produce it, direct it, shoot it, whatever you happen to want to do, and do it. Because you will never learn. I have worked with way too many kids out of film school who have gone all the way through film school and think that they know how to make a movie, and they don't. Because, well, one thing is every movie, every production is its own thing. You can make something, and there's another thing I've seen where somebody makes something and then they think they know how to do it. And they go into the second thing and realize, oh crap, it's completely different. Yeah, there's things you're dealing with the unions and blah, blah, blah. But every single production has its own set of problems. And so after a while, you'll learn that, it's always problem solving. There's, no one has the imagination to think up all the things that could possibly go wrong and what you're trying to deal with. So just do it. And I also really believe in that. Don't be afraid of making mistakes, because the mistakes are where I've learned so much when I had my little tiny production company, and kind of the same thing as looking back at your prior work. You look at it and go, oh, I can do that better. Or I ran into this problem and I'll never let that problem happen again. Or now I know if that problem happens, I know how I can fix it in post or whatever it happens to be. And just, this day and age, I've known people who have made things that are absolutely incredible by themselves, which is great. But I also think you have to be open to collaboration. One of the thing I love when I had my little production company and I was directing things is I loved having creative people around me who could throw out great ideas. But I also loved being the guy who mine was the last word, going, that's a great idea. Let's do that. Or, that's a great idea. It doesn't work because of A, B, and C beforehand, but I'm going to pocket that idea and use it somewhere else. And just do it. That's just that, like for me, not thinking about it, but when I look back on the fact that I had made stupid commercials when I was a kid, when I walked in and started doing them, I went, oh, there's a lot of stuff I can draw on from when I was doing it as a lark. It's it's a business now. It's different. There's a lot, there's people wanting certain things out of me, but I had a weird experience doing it because I had done it before for my own shits and giggles. And especially nowadays, if you want to be a good actor, you can shoot yourself, do a scene from something you like. If you like a movie and you like that one scene, do it. Even if you're doing a complete ripoff of the person's in front of you, you're going to get so much experience on how they did it. I mean, and it's still going through your filter. It's still going to be a little different. And just do it, and do it some more. That's the only thing I can think of. And And I think it's really important that nobody ever thinks that they know how it all is. Always be watching and seeing how other people do it. I think that's really, when you watch anything from, you know, directors and stuff, and how often they'll have a an overall picture of how the thing wants that they want it to end or be, and then through the collaboration or somebody's in the moment improv. You know, how many times you've heard that? You know, this line wasn't scripted, but they threw it in, and it ended up in the movie and being perfect. And just because all along the line, no one had thought of it until that actor in front of the camera in that moment. So it's, you know, it's art, and art is, you have an intention, and because of the environment, things change, and you end up with something different than you originally intended. But oftentimes it's better than what you thought of.
Wow. Yeah. First of all, thanks so much for sharing that, Jim. I think for anybody watching who, as I said, a lot of our viewers do want to do something similar to what you do or exactly what you do. So thanks for being so honest about that. And yeah, as well, thanks so much for being such a good guest. This was so amazing to have you on because, as I said at the beginning of the interview, you know, I'm a fan of yours and a fan of what you do. And for you to sort of, we use this phrase a lot, but demystify it for us guys who are just watching it, it's the best. So thanks so much for being such a good guest.
You're welcome. Well, I'm flattered that you think I'm a good guest. I
come on. Of course you are.
I'm just yakking here.
Thank you, Jim. One last thing. My brother Carl is a big fan of yours, and he just wanted to say hello real quick just before we said bye.
Hey, Jim, how's it going?
Good. How you doing? You should be hanging out. We could have chatted.
I was behind the camera the whole time. I'm going to be editing earlier, so but I just want to say, if you don't mind me being sappy for a moment, this doll here.
Oh, right here. You go ahead.
Has been such a positive force in our lives growing up. So I just want to thank you for that, and thanks for coming on the show as well. So.
I'm just a part of it. I'm just, you know, I think so much of the connection people have is because of the movies. Well,
your voice has just been constantly present, so we're very grateful.
Well, don't tell your brother, but you're my favorite deputy.
Thanks, Jim.
Jim, you're a legend. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure, and yeah, it was good. It was a good conversation, good questions. I love it.
I appreciate that. All right, thanks. Have a good day, Jim. Nice meeting you.
Take care.
Hey guys, it's Carl here. Support the podcast and like, subscribe, follow, or wherever you may be.
That's it.